Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
We are here with Kiernan Tollefson. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm delighted. You are a guitar player. You are a guitar player extraordinaire. I have enjoyed listening to your music very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I know you have an interesting backstory, so I'm going to ask you, what drove you? You probably have said this a few times, but what drove you to start playing the guitar?
Yeah. So, as a lot of people have, I started off playing piano. That was sort of the thing. A lot of kids don't like playing, the Bach or Beethoven or whatever, but I did it. And looking back now, I'm glad I did it. But, at the time as a kid, you want to play the stuff you hear on the radio or whatever music you're into. So kind of my initial start with music was on the piano. And then I stopped piano lessons for a while. And then I got really sick one winter. I think it was winter of 2015. Or 2016, I can't remember. But I got really sick and was just bedridden for 3 or 4 months. And during that time, I just picked up my dad's old guitar. And I was like, this is like, I had nothing else to do. I was getting sick of playing video games all the time. So like, I gotta find something else to do here. And so I picked that up and then just went from there. Like it started off as every guitar player knows, just a lot of calluses and some pain. But then I was just like, I have all this free time of just being home and sitting around. Might as well just keep going. So then that quickly turned into, learning chords, learning scales. And pretty soon I was doing like 3, 4, or 5 hours a day in that first couple months. That's kind of how it all began.
I think that's amazing because just doing a little guesstimate and a little math, you must have been a teenager.
Yes. I was about 15 or 16 when I started. Yeah.
I think to have that kind of positive attitude to say, I'm going to do something with this time is so admirable.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm not a teenager. I don't know that I could do it.
Okay. Yeah. And I was honestly, it was a big blessing because I don't know what really could have filled that time for me. Like I can't think of something productive because I could have been watching movies or I guess kind of reading, but like this is something that really propelled me to be something that I've enjoyed for the next 6 years until today. So I'm really thankful for it, and it was kind of maybe not a blessing in disguise to get sick, but maybe a little bit because I probably wouldn't have picked that up because I wouldn't have had the free time and been bored enough to pursue it. So I'm pretty thankful for that.
You kind of got a pre-COVID glimpse of COVID life.
Yeah, a little bit, definitely. Yeah, and so I think in a way that kind of prepared me because I was like, I've seen what it's like. I'm just gonna, I have other hobbies now as well. But I was like, I can always turn to the guitar. I can't remember who said it. Might have been Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits, but he said like, if you play the guitar, like you'll always have a friend. Because it's a pretty cool instrument, and so I've seen that through a couple times now.
Can I ask what drove you to do the 12-string guitar too? Because that is very unique.
Yeah, I remember with that, I've been playing just 6-string acoustic, and then I got a couple electrics that were 6-string, and I remember walking into a guitar store one day, and I was like, I wasn't planning to buy anything. But I went in and I was just looking around and I was like, man, that's really cool. Like I kind of knew what 12 strings sounded like at this point. This was probably 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And I just strummed it and I was like, whoa, that's really cool. So I picked it up and just started messing with it. And it's a little bit difficult to play at first. And I was like, I really like this. So then I set it down and I left and didn't think anything of it. And then I just kept thinking about it the rest of the week. I was like, I gotta get that thing. So I emailed the guy who owned the music store, and I was like, hey, like, what's the price? He's like, well, I just picked this up from someone that, kind of crappy, haven't even fixed it up yet. I was like, all right, well, I really want it. So if you can do what you can for a week, I'll be there next weekend to pick it up. He was like, all right. So then I went in and got it, and that's the guitar I recorded my first album on. So it's pretty cool that it all worked out. Again, wasn't even thinking of it, and just happened to be there. So.
What is the first song you played in entirety on that one?
I think that's "Love's No Friend of Mine." It's kind of in a little bit of a weird tuning on the 12 string. And yeah, that I didn't start, and that's kind of the amazing thing also about guitar is you can pick up a new instrument, a new guitar, and something will just come to you. If you're proficient enough with playing, like you'll just come up with something you're like, I don't know where that came from. And so that song was the first song I wrote when I got that guitar, or at least the riff, the opening riff. If you listen to that album, The Wandering, on that song, like that was the first thing I wrote on that guitar. I was just messing around, and I was like, wow, there it is. So it's really interesting. I encourage anyone who plays, an instrument or guitar to kind of experiment a lot with different tunings and just get out of your comfort zone. Because that's what happened with me, and that's kind of how it started.
You have an unusual way of playing, and I don't know if you know Paul Metzger. He plays a modified 12-string banjo. Has a similar. Sometimes he plays with a boa, and sometimes I don't know what you call it, but kind of that unusual.
Like tapping or fingerstyle. Yeah.
How did you come upon that?
Yeah. So Billy McLaughlin is a fingerstyle guitarist from White Bear Lake, went to USC. But my dad had been old friends with him. And so my dad kind of set me up and was like, hey, you should talk to this guy. And this is after I'd played guitar for maybe a year and a half. And I was like, this guy's really awesome. I remember my dad would always have his CDs on in the car. And I never could wrap my head around like what was actually going on, because when you hear him play, it sounds like multiple instruments, and sometimes it doesn't even sound like a guitar. So my dad's like, you should talk to this guy and see what's up, and get some advice from him on guitar. And so I got together with him, and before whoever's listening to this, look into Billy McLaughlin. He's got a really cool story where he gets focal dystonia and has to teach himself to play left-handed when he was right-handed. So really cool. But he at one point was like one of the top acoustic guitarists in the world, and so just being around him was just unbelievable. Like just masterclass on how to play. And so the only kind of instruction I got from him was sort of how to hold it and one of his tunings. I was like, okay. And then I kind of went from there. So it was sort of a lesson he gave me, but it was more or less just complete inspiration from him, seeing like he's one person, he's done all this. And so that's something that's really inspired me. So that's sort of how I came across that kind of style of playing. And it was like learning another instrument. So I enjoyed it, but it was also pretty challenging.
I like the use of it in To Remember. I find To Remember to be such a to me, it feels like such a calming song. It's just, but then you got that slide sound.
Yep.
In the middle of it that I think is such a point of interest. It changes the whole song.
Yeah, it does. And that's sort of, stylistically, I try to approach the guitar different than a lot of other people. Like, you take everyone who's a musician is inspired by certain people. And you sort of, take bits and pieces of styles. But I really started writing songs before I knew how to play songs, because I was like, I want to sort of be able to develop my own sound, and not just, learn every Led Zeppelin song. And then that's my style of playing, sort of. I just really wanted to kind of hone in for myself. And I don't know why I did that, but I'm really glad I did, because there's a lot of things now where I'm like, I feel like I don't hear that other musicians or guitarists playing like that. And I feel like you look at the majority of really good musicians, and obviously there's a lot of technical skill of what they're really good at, but there's got to be some sort of uniqueness. And I think that's what makes artists last, is the ones who are unique and bring something new to the table versus just really technically skilled. Because there's a lot of people who can absolutely shred on so many instruments. But my question is like, are they coming out with really good original content? Are they bringing something new? And so that's what I've really tried to do, because I want to do music full time and want to really be remembered, and have the music go on after me. And so I think really coming at it from a new angle and bringing something new and kind of taking a risk is kind of what's needed.
Well, and
I was just going to say, I like that you feel so strongly about it, because there's so many mimickers or just not, yeah. Some people aren't as confident to show what's unique or spotlight something that maybe they'd like to hide, but it shines and adds something. I like that that's important to you right now, because I do think that that is something that propels somebody up above and beyond. And you seem to be very passionate of what I've seen and read about you, that is very important to you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, and I think definitely early career, that's a good thing to start doing, because you're always going to have, you hear about it with people in music all the time, of the record label or the producer or someone is pulling and pushing, and there's all this, people trying to tell you what to do and kind of get you to conform in a way to, oh, we need to sell more, we need to whatever. And if you can point to, hey, I got here because of the uniqueness, like that's really critical to be able to point to and stay true to your own style. So that's why I think it's pretty crucial to do that early on. Plus, I feel like it's difficult to develop your own style later on when you're sort of pigeonholed as this guy plays pop music, this guy is a whatever. So yeah, I agree with you. Thank you.
I was going to say, in your song "Sorry to Leave,"
yes,
there's some point in there, and I don't know, but I hear Pink Floyd.
Okay.
I don't know. I kind of want to hear, because I was just like, oh, I hear that, and I was like, that is the craziest thing that just popped into my head. But I was like, I totally hear it, and I know you like the 70s and stuff too. So I was like, ooh, I wonder if that was in your head at all, or if you can hear that yourself after I say it, I guess.
I wasn't quite thinking any Pink Floyd for that one, but I mean, they're definitely like a huge inspiration to me. They're one of my, I always rotate between like my top 5 bands, but they're in the top 5 always. And again, with them, like, you listen to a lot of their stuff, very weird, like kind of unlistenable, some of it, just weird kind of noises and just odd stuff. But again, it's sort of that taking a risk, giving people an experience with how unique it is. And so I appreciate that comment, because Pink Floyd is a huge inspiration to me. And that's, kind of what I was saying before, of you just are so inspired by people that, writing before I started to listen to a lot of bands was big, because I get my own unique style mixed with these good influences of Pink Floyd. So I think it all kind of eventually works together there. But I like that it sounds like Pink Floyd reminds you of that's
Good, because I was like, but I kind of like it too, yeah, because they are unique and whatever, and they did their own thing, and it's kind of like you never know where they're going to go, and that's kind of like you, it pulls you in, like, wait, what? And then you go here, and then you go there, so it does just like get you on the ride and want to see where you go, I guess. But it's, yeah. And you get that visual of you playing, because you just hear so many different things. I could just see your fingers going all over the place. I'm like, how the hell does he do this?
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. One thing that I listened to of you said something like, the intenseness of making music, it's either high or low. You don't want something in the middle. So when you're creating, what usually gets those juices flowing? Or are you like pissed or stressed and you just start playing to get stuff out? Or is it therapeutic? Or how does this happen?
It's a lot of everything. I'm not gonna lie. It's a lot of everything. I'd say so. It's a little bit difficult to be super angry when you're playing acoustic guitar, because it can only get so loud. That's more electric stuff, which I haven't had any songs that I've released that are electric yet. But honestly, most times it's just kind of it's whatever I'm feeling, and so that's where the high and low comes from. I generally I like to do stuff that I'm really passionate about. I don't like to just kind of ho hum through life and get by. Like, I'm either really down about something or I'm really up, which, you can ask people in my life, kind of drive them crazy. But that's really I think helped my music and the emotion of it. And I think that's why a lot of people connect with it, because it's like, oh, this is cool. Like I'm feeling something here. I'm not, and like I have nothing against, lo-fi chill music that people are listening to study or whatever. I listen to a lot of that stuff. Um, but the music I try to do is really, like I say, high and low. And so definitely something that always inspires me is just, you know, stuff not going your way. 'Cause I know everyone has that, but COVID, that was irritating, and you can hear some of that in a lot of my songs. Because I started to actually record in February 2020. Um, and there were some songs that I wasn't going to include because they weren't finished, and then everything kind of hit the fan, and I was like, oh dang. So I had that whole summer to kind of wrestle with. And like I said, I'm glad that I had the experience back in 2015, 2016 to kind of get me used to, having hobbies and being at home, but still very irritating. Like I was having a great semester at college, and that just got completely cut off. And even looking back on it, I'm like, that was, some of the best months of my life that I feel like I possibly missed. And so a lot of the anger came from that. And you can hear that in definitely The Omen is one of the songs on there that's pretty intense. Um, so yeah, I really just try to give people an emotion, and I like to keep it real. And so for me, like I'm either up or down. There's not much of a middle ground. And I think that's where it comes from in a lot of my music. And I think a lot of people can hear that.
I think absolutely, as I said, with To Remember, I felt a great sense of calm as opposed to Forever and Always. It feels like a tension ridden, a very tense song to listen to, just throughout the whole song. And then you've got those mad guitar riffs in the middle where, like, if you were a whole band on stage, but that's where the light would be shining on
Yeah.
the guitar player, but
Mhm.
that tension is leaves you with a thought. It leaves you with an
Mhm.
emotion.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I definitely try to do a lot of, light and shade. There's got to be. I think every song sort of can tell a story. And I feel like, there's some songs that don't tell stories, and they're completely fine. But for me, like I want the songs to really tell a story. Like I don't always have something, crystal clear in my mind that I'm trying to capture or emulate. But in general, like, everyone's kind of heard of the hero's journey trope, and I try to capture definitely parts of that in a lot of my songs. So like Forever and Always, for example, like, it starts off really calm, and then by the end, it's a little bit of fury, not anger, but just like, a little bit of chaos.
Yeah.
Um, and so kind of there's definitely a beginning, and then it starts to peak at the end. So I really like to try to tell a story. Um, and I think part of me growing as an artist is figuring out, okay, how do I tell stories that are not that are different from others? Because again, the hero's journey is a great example of, like, it's classic. Like you see it in everything. You see it in Star Wars. You see it in pop culture now. But I'm a little bit trying to break away from that. And all right, how do I take these certain sections of the hero's journey and just focus on those? So that's definitely part of how I've been growing as an artist. But I'm always trying to tell a story.
Well, and undoubtedly, it is more challenging to tell a story when you're an instrumentalist.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And that's something that's tough. I'm like, I really feel like if I had someone who was singing my songs, and I have a friend who I'm hoping to release some songs with where he's singing on
Oh,
them, but it's it's tough. Like you have to work a lot harder, I feel like, to really give that emotion, and not just give the emotion, but tell the story, because it's not black and white. And not all lyrics are black and white, but if you want to, you can make lyrics really concrete. And so, and that's kind of the beauty of instrumental music, is I can have something in my mind of, okay, this is kind of the emotion I want to invoke. But I hear stuff from people all the time of, oh, this song makes me think of this, and I'm like, that's really cool. That's not what I thought, but it's similar enough to kind of what I was going for. That it's really neat to hear that from people. But yeah, there's certainly a challenge with being an instrumentalist to capturing emotion, and I feel like it takes a lot of thought. Um, and so that's something that I always kind of have to wrestle with. I feel like sometimes I can write songs quickly, get parts down, but then I have to really think of the direction of them. Okay, where do all the pieces fit? How intense should they be? Because again, like not having multiple instruments, there's only so much volume control I can have as well. And so it's like it all has to work together, and I'm fairly limited with, one or two guitars that I put on. But I do enjoy the challenge, and it's kind of a fun process.
Well, and I think you're able to hit me in a much more base level than other music. I'm not worried about what those words mean. I'm not worried about the stones. It really is just the pure emotion, just the pure reaction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something that I really love to hear, because there's so in life, there's so much of people telling you what to do or what to think. And so if you can give people sort of an outline and let them fill it in, I feel like that's sort of a beautiful thing. And again, songs with lyrics, some of them are strange lyrics and they aren't clear. So people can sort of make their own meaning. But again, with instrumental music, it's really neat when I hear people say, this means this to me, or I was able to relax listening to this because of whatever. So it's it's a fun process, and I love hearing the feedback because again, a lot of people are just kind of throughout the day told what to do by their boss or told what to think or told whatever. So if I can give people an escape, to let them create their own reality, like that's a neat thing to do.
I think that's a cool thing too, like you touched on before, saying people tell you this is what the song means to them, and you're like, oh, that's not what I was going for, but simple enough, but it kind of makes the song grow, or maybe inspires you to be like, oh, it can invoke this, or I mean, it's just kind of a learning thing for everyone too, I guess, or
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I definitely do feel like I get taught by some feedback. And I mean, I wouldn't say that it directly affects, the next song I write of, oh, I need to do it like that. But it's really cool to hear, some of the feedback of this song makes me think of this. And I'm like, I've never thought of writing a song about that. So maybe I'll, have that in the back of my mind for a song that I'm halfway done with, and that helps me finish it out or whatever. But yeah, I just love getting feedback from people. It's really neat to sort of see everyone's interpretation of what's going on. And like I said, just giving people sort of a rough outline and then let them fill it in.
I was going to say, when you were talking about having somebody sing, I think I would be a little intimidated getting paired up with you,
Okay.
honestly, in a good way, but you are very focused on your vision and very skilled. I don't know if I'd be like, pick me, How would you go about that for yourself too? Just because this is your baby, kind of thing.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I think so I have I have multiple songs actually where the ones where I would put the lyrics to are ones that are a little bit more bare bones to where I don't quite have, a lot of melodies. And I don't have a complete vision. So that's where I would want someone else in because I'm like, yeah, I want, almost full creative control over this, but doing that sometimes is very difficult because it has to be all you. Like if you come to a roadblock, you can't move on. I have songs that I wrote 4 or 5 years ago that I haven't finished yet because I just haven't found the missing piece or the thing that inspires me to finish it or whatever. Um, and so that's where I think, the lyrics come in is like, all right, this is sort of a general outline. It's an open book and sort of, the feedback that I was talking about with the listeners of my music, like with my friend, that's what I'll kind of do with him. I'll be like, hey, like give me your feedback and then we'll bounce this off of each other and go from there. So I'm excited about that process. It's a little scary going into it because I have to let go a little bit. It's as much as I want to decide, I'm like, if I tell whoever's singing like, hey, this is what you have to do, and they don't want to do it, like that's kind of lost the song there. So it's you hear with bands all the time like fighting for creative control, and so I feel like that's the arguing and the kind of playing devil's advocate is a really good thing to have. But when you start to, it's at the detriment of friendships and you're losing the music ultimately because it's more about the vision than creating something good. That's when it becomes a problem. So I don't think I'll have any problems with that, but that would be sort of a challenge because I haven't done that enough.
Well, I was gonna say maybe you could do like, this is my solo stuff. This is the stuff I want to do with my band or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, because there's definitely a sort of perfectionism for me of like, okay, this is my song catalog. I don't want people to look back and be like, why did he release that? Because I mean, any band you look back at some point in their career and you're like, that song was like kind of horrendous. Like why did they do that? Like even like some early Beatles stuff. It's like, oh, what was that? And so and that's not the worst thing in the world, but for me, that's something that I feel like when I put my music out there, it's out there for anyone who has access to music to be able to get to. So that's a little bit of a scary thing, knowing, I'm not getting millions of streams, but knowing like there's potentially, I don't know, 3 to 5 billion people who can have access to this. Like that's pretty daunting and it's kind of scary. So I think the letting go of perfectionism is a little bit what I've had to do. But yes, I agree with sort of, different, or having a different name that it goes under or whatever.
But I think that's a gift for you too, of letting go, because otherwise, lots of times it never feels perfect enough or right or whatever. And you always have to have a starting point. And we've talked to enough people where they play it this way for the record, but at their shows they want to experiment and do something else. So it's always ever changing. So it's never done or.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's really tough is knowing when to be done. Because it might not be that difficult like that for everyone, but for me, like I can always come up with another little part or something little else to add. I have some songs that are instrumental that are like 7 to 8 minutes, and it's like, okay, that needs to probably be cut down a little bit. So it's knowing when to kind of, cool the engines, but it's also just knowing when to be able to put it out into the world because, on every single one of my songs, none of them are like perfect. Like there's, at least for me, I can hear a little, I hit a string slightly wrong, or I make a little mistake here or there, or the timing changes a little bit. But I think some of those things are what make the song unique because you're recording a song, but you're also, when you record, you're recording a moment in your own life, and you're like, this is exactly what was happening during my life. So I think that's a pretty cool thing to be able to catch, the parts that are perfect, but also the parts that aren't.
I was going to say, I love to hear the imperfectness, even though I didn't hear it in yours, because so many people do the Logic or whatever it is, and it's just like, press this, press that, press this,
Mm-hmm.
which it can still have good sounds and whatever, but you don't get the same, in my opinion. It's not the hard work or the visual of you doing finger tapping on the guitar and all that. Like, we love the imperfections.
Yeah, and I think, because I don't do really anything post production of trying to clean stuff up. Like you can ask, anyone who hears me playing or has recorded with me, like it takes me forever because like in general, I want to start at the beginning, finish at the end, the whole song. I want it to just be one take essentially. And you can't always do that. Like there's plenty of songs where I've done, 2 or 3 parts that I splice together. But for the most part, I like to, as much as I can, to keep the human element in there, because, again, forever and always, like I remember I double tracked that, but the first time that I recorded the first track, or when I got the complete first track done, I remember like my heart was racing. So I was like, okay, it's been like 3 hours that I've almost gotten this. And so the end is probably a little bit faster than it should be, but it captures the emotion of it. And so that's like I said, getting the emotion of things. I don't want to, do a bunch of post-production stuff and make sure I, mute certain things or whatever. Like I like to keep it as dry and clean as I can. And I think that keeps a lot of the emotion in there.
Let's just say there are a lot of very technical musicians that they can play Led Zeppelin perfectly,
Mhm.
but that's not what you're striving to be. The drop stitch lets you know it's a homemade sweater.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it's got that little bit of love there. So talking about the production and hired, you've got an EP coming out in May.
Yes.
Do you have a vision for that EP? Do you have a vision for each song? How are you approaching it?
So yeah, it's a little bit. I have almost all the songs. I don't have many of the songs recorded. I have sort of the whole thing nailed down a little bit of the vision of it. And so it's not quite a concept album, but all the songs are going to be, you know, have kind of a similar vibe to them. Sort of similar themes, but there's going to be a story throughout it. So like I was saying before, each song has a story. Well, this whole album is going to be a story with sort of sub stories in it. Um, and so yeah, that's that. I mean, that's I don't want to say too much. I'm really excited about it because there have been some kind of you hear an artist talk about found materials, and so there's sort of some you know sounds that I've recorded. I'm not like tapping on a wall or anything, but like natural outdoor noises that I'm gonna
Awesome.
put into that as well. So I'm really excited about it because there's a lot of really unique stuff that I haven't done yet that's going to be on there, mixed with some cool noises in there to be able to tell a continuous story. So I'm pretty excited about it, and it should be. Gosh, I feel like I keep adding songs to it. It should be about 8 or 9 songs by the time I'm done with it. So I'm pretty excited about it. May seems like a long ways away for a lot of people, but I've already started recording because like it takes a while to process all this and nail it down. Like I said, my recording process can be kind of painful sometimes. So I'm trying to give myself enough time to not stress about it, but I know there probably will be some stress near the end. So
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing it because I assumed there'd be some kind of thing when you start talking about the hero's tale, journey.
mhm.
Yeah, there's going to be a story behind it, and
Yeah,
this your music is so evocative that it makes sense. So we're excited to hear the
thank
new
you.
one when it comes out, and just a second or two on the videos that you've done that match so well with the
Mhm.
music that you have. And I listened to your music first, and then I listened to the videos for Forever and Always and To Remember, and I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, yeah. The one, the calm music is in the stream and the tension is more in the winter. I said, it's
Yep.
perfect. You just nailed it so well.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the visuals are definitely something that I don't have like a professional videographer who I always go to, and that's why I haven't done a lot of music videos. But I'm hoping to kind of do that one shot thing from now on of tripod with you know maybe slightly moving background of some sort. If it's wind behind me and trees blowing or whatever. But I do put you know I have put consideration into like the locations that I go to shoot for certain videos or ads that I put out. So yeah, I think the visuals really do add to it. But obviously music comes first, but the visuals can be a really good secondary thing.
Yeah, definitely an additive. So yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we're excited for May. We're excited for the new one to come out in May, and hoping that you will maybe drip out a couple of the singles
Oh
between
yeah,
now and
for
then.
sure. For sure. Yeah, there'll be some independent kind of standalone singles not related to the album.
Oh, fantastic.
I should have at least 3 coming out. Again, it's all kind of up in the air with the timeline of May coming quickly. So I'll have 2 to 3 probably, and then dripping out 2 or 3 singles before May. So there's quite a bit of music before May even. So lots to look forward to.
Fantastic. Great.
Mhm.
For folks who are listening, and I'll put this in the notes, how can people find you online?
Yeah. So probably the easiest way is to just go to KiernanTollefson.com. That links you to everything. I have YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, all up on there. Or looking me up on Spotify because that's where you can really listen to my music the most immediately. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of places to find me, but my website is probably the best place to start. Or if you just want to get right into the music, I'd say go to Spotify.
Yeah. No, it's a nice website. I
Thank you.
think it's a newish website. It looks good.
Yes, I made it 2 weeks ago, I think.
Very good. Nice job. Very good.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Karen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for bringing your music to us. I enjoy it. We enjoy it very much.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.